From a flightless simulator at Ferris Air to a momentous meeting in an alley to the complex mind of an architect to every far sector in space and to the brilliance of the central power battery on Oa. This is the podcast that covers the adventures of all of your favorite ring slingers. This is the Emerald Echo with your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode of Emerald Echo, a Green Lantern podcast and vidcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me, as always, is my co-host, the Emerald Enthusiast himself, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
What's up, Lantern fans? It's the man whose ring runs on fanboy energy. It is the Emerald Enthusiast, and we're back with another episode of the Emerald Echo.
Indeed, we are. It's good to be back.
And we're back.
Yes, and it's good to be in an era where there are more than one Green Lantern books on the stands or in your digital, in the digital realm of purchasing possibilities. I don't know, you can't call it a stand because they're not standing on anything, they're just there. But, you know, it's good to have multiple ways to purchase multiple Green Lantern books is what I'm getting at. Let's start out. You wanted to give a special shout out, Donnie, so I'll let you take it away because you're better at these things than I am. So go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to say we learned recently that a fellow Green Lantern podcaster, Myron Rumsey of the Podcast of Oa, recently suffered a stroke and he is recovering now. He is still doing episodes, but he does have some challenges. And of course, you can go over and listen to what Myron has to say about his health crisis on the Podcast of Oa. He does talk about it extensively there. And we just want to wish him a very speedy and full recovery.
Yes, of course. Get well soon, and all will be well, or at least we hope all will be well, and that's what we'll pray for. Yes,
we're going to send out some Blue Lantern healing energy to Myron.
Absolutely, 100%. Also, it's not really news, but it's worth mentioning because it's Lanterns related. One of the cast members, the Earthbound characters that's not in the comics that, you know, a lot of people on the internet complained about because, God forbid, they're non-comic book related characters in the show. One of those actors posted a behind the scenes image of a birthday cake with the Green Lantern logo on it. And the birthday cake was for Hal Jordan, not Kyle Chandler, but Hal Jordan, because Hal Jordan's canonical birthday is February 20th. And that's what the cake was celebrating. Of course, he mentioned Kyle Chandler because Kyle Chandler is playing Hal Jordan. But
right.
I thought that was a cool little tribute to the character and the canonical history of the character.
Yeah. And if it's the image I saw, and maybe somebody doctored the original image I saw where somebody had added Guy Gardner to the cake, which would be a kind of thing that Guy Gardner would do, like put his image on Hal's cake or something. I thought that was funny.
The actual lantern symbol on the cake, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that the one they were used in association with this very show?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm like, that looks familiar. Is it one of our birthdays and I missed the memo? If I start forgetting my own birthday, by the way, that's problematic, but I digress. I'm not there yet. Maybe in 20 years, I'll worry about it. But so I thought that was neat. And you know what? The other good piece of news that is not really news is that filming is in full scale because Aaron Pierre has recently mentioned that they are currently underway. And obviously, if they're posting, you know, images from behind the scenes, means they're filming. You know, I've seen a couple people online mention it's kind of crazy that we haven't got any like set pics or spy pics from the sets of either Supergirl or Lanterns because both are filming. And I say that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Not that I don't want to see this stuff because I'm eagerly anticipating getting some first looks at Hal, John, Sinestro, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, Millie Alcock is Supergirl because, why not? And since I have the opportunity, and I might not have for the rest
Here
of
we
the
go.
show,
Yeah.
Millie Alcock on the list. As much as I want to see all that stuff, I'm also glad we haven't, because I think in today's day and age of having everything at our fingertips and the internet, we know too much about how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
And I like me some sausage, but I don't want to know all the ins and outs before I eat it. There's something to be said about seeing promotional material from a movie when it's desired by the filmmakers in the studios for us to see it. Any thoughts on that, Donnie?
Well, the thing is, these studios are now um, very careful and very particular about whom they trust with this information. Recently, we learned that there was an old Marvel script that was stolen and released for one of the Avengers films, I believe it was. But Anthony Mackie talked about it, and they talked about the fact that they now have to be very careful. We don't want information getting out there. Number one, that might lead people in a direction where they have certain hopes, and when that doesn't happen, they get upset about it. We want the fandom to be happy, and I think it's okay for them to give us what they think is appropriate without too much too fast.
Right. Like I said, when they deem it's ready for us to see, they'll show us. And here's an example. It's not Green Lantern related, but it's comic book related. Mm-hmm. I remember back in the day when, when I found out there was a third Batman film coming and Michael Keaton wasn't Batman? You want to know when I found that out?
When was that?
When I went to the theater and saw the trailer.
Yeah.
That's when I saw it, when I found out.
That's how things used to work. Other than maybe there'd be like a mention in like a fan trade or something, like a sci-fi magazine. You didn't find this stuff out back then.
Back in the day when I was 12, however old I was when Batman Forever came out. But and my reaction was, there's a new Batman, and it's not Michael Keaton. Cool. I can't wait to go watch it. That was my reaction. Right. Contrast that with Batman Begins, when I read online accidentally that Henry Ducard was actually Ra's al Ghul, and that spoiled the movie. Months in advance of me seeing the movie, give me 1995 finding out stuff as opposed to 2005 and forward. That's my take on the matter. So. So like I said, as much as I'm eager to, unwrap the Christmas presents, as it were, and see what's in store, I also like this period of, hey, I'll find out when it's time for me to find out. So it's a bit of a 50-50 split, but good on them for being able to keep this stuff locked down and just go about the business of making the stuff that we're eventually going to see.
It's funny, in 1997, and I'm sure you're going to flop over. You're never going to believe this. I was buying an action figure, 1997.
Oh, wait a minute. The earth is shaking, folks.
1997, I was buying an action figure, and I was looking at it, and it was an action figure of Sheev Palpatine.
Oh.
And there was this story on the back. It was like Sheev Palpatine, blah 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 blah. And this was before the Star Wars sequels, the prequels came out. So I already knew exactly who Palpatine was going to be leading up to be the Emperor, just because I had read the back of an action figure. And so not that I really minded, because it was Star Wars. I was going to see it anyway, but there was no surprise there. So
it's like, stop spoiling stuff. I mean, when the toy does it, you kind of get pissed. It's like, okay, you guys approve this crap. Can't you hide certain things in the description?
Yeah. And that happened actually with the Winter Soldier too in 2014. There was a little controversy because some of the action figures, the Marvel Legends and stuff that came out, they were revealing plot points about the movie before the movie had actually premiered.
Yeah, it's like you said, when it's controllable stuff that the studio has to approve, it's kind of like, could you not have edited or asked for that to be edited out? Like, James Gunn recently said that he approves all the toy marketing, all the toy promotion for Superman, which is, of course. So I'm hoping that he's like, yeah, I kind of don't put that in the description. Like, I don't want to see if there's a figure of Lex Luthor, if he has his battle suit in the movie.
Mhm.
Don't show me the battle suit before I see it in the film or in the
Right.
trailer. I don't want to see it in the toy.
Yeah, and don't you give away a major plot point like again, as a comic book reader, I already knew that Bucky Barnes was the Winter Soldier, but most people going into that movie, they may not have wanted to know that.
Average Joe Blow doesn't know what the hell a Winter Soldier is, let alone the fact that he's Bucky Barnes. So it's so like I said, as much as I want to see things, I kind of like this period of, hey, they're just filming stuff, they're getting it done, and we'll see it when we see it. So it's good.
Speaking of action figures, also, if you want to go to my YouTube channel, I have recently done a review of the Dread Lantern Alan Scott, as well as the brand new Green Lantern Guy Gardner figure on my channel. That's the first Guy Gardner figure that we have gotten in the DC Multiverse line.
Do you think it's a coincidence that it's coming out now, months before he makes his big screen debut?
It's tough to say that there's no connection at all. So I'm still looking for the Platinum Edition, but I can't wait, and I'm so happy to finally have now the 4 Corman.
It's synergy, even though that's not the movie version of Guy. Although I want to ask you, because we haven't talked since. So did you see that little Super Bowl kind of spot?
Yes.
Guy, what did you think of it? I gotta say, I thought that was genius, like calling the bowl cut, Super Bowl, the whole 9 yards. I thought that was genius, and his facial, what's his? Why do I keep forgetting his name?
Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, I keep wanting to just call him Guy because he is that. He becomes that. But Nathan Fillion's facial expressions are so spot on with the comic book character. It's uncanny.
Right.
And it's just fantastic. So I thought that was hilarious.
So many people have asked me about that. They're like, yeah, I've seen that Green Lantern promo. That guy seems really like self-obsessed and arrogant. And I'm like, that's the point.
That's the guy, right?
I'm like, he is an acquired taste, and it may take you a little while to like him, but I'm like, that's the idea. And when it's all over, I think a lot of people are going to be new Guy Gardner fans.
He's like Carmelo Hayes in WWE, except not as cool, But I digress. But yeah, that's pretty much all we have for the news portion of the show. So we'll take a quick break. And on the other side of the break, we have 2 Green Lantern comic books to discuss this episode. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Don't go anywhere.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last.
And we're back.
Absolutely, we are. And as promised, we have comic books to turn our attention to. So, Donnie, where are we going first?
We are going to start out with Green Lantern number 19, written by Jeremy Adams, with artists Fernando Pasarin and Auclair Albert, and Jason Paz.
Absolutely.
And this is going to open up in Hub City with the Justice League fighting this creature from the deep. And we see Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman, as well as Black Lightning, and of course, Carol Ferris, who is now wielding the Star Sapphire ring as a hero, part of the Justice League.
I enjoyed seeing it for having her narration as the point of view, because she's so new to it. It's almost like she gives the perspective of the audience member of what it would be like for one of us to be standing fighting alongside the Justice League.
Yeah.
Also, the creature that they were fighting was kind of reminded me of Justice League #1 with Starro back in the the day.
Yeah.
Very similar.
That's a very iconic cover.
Right, and I love to mention right off the back, Aquaman is missing.
Right.
We can't call him. It's like the one time we need Aquaman, he's not here. I thought that
Well,
was
and
funny.
we talked about the fact that she's helped many groups of heroes in the past, but this is the first time that she is actively making a choice to be this hero and to be responsible here, and she is helping the Justice League here, although she makes a net to hold this gigantic tentacled creature, but she can't hold it completely. It starts to break away, and who do you think shows up?
I'm gonna guess Hal, just because I've read the issue. That's not an answer, I guess.
And he uses a phrase that I don't think I've heard this in about 20 years. Hey, good looking, what you got cooking?
I don't think that would be socially acceptable if they use that today.
That's an oldie, but that's an oldie but goodie.
Yes, I have a problem with that today. I'm sure.
Well, obviously, I mean, whatever she would have cooking would be that thing in the net. So,
Well, yeah, I guess that's for dinner. If they could cook, if you can cook that, I don't know. But my reaction was, because they're kind of flirting as they're, as the preamble to Hal actually helping out. He starts flirting with her, and I just love the reaction of Batman. He's like you can see the misery and the grumbling, and Superman and Wonder Woman was like, I think it's sweet. It's like me too, and Superman's like, he looks at Batman and is like, you're just unhappy because it's Hal being happy.
yeah, his exact words here. He goes, "You sure you're not annoyed because Hal is happy?" And Batman goes, "Hmm." Oh, this is why I so enjoy the dynamic between Batman and all the Lantern characters, because
that's one thing I can't wait to see in the DCU. I hope we get some of that.
Yeah,
that vibe between the characters.
Right.
But yeah, Jeremy Adams just handled that so perfectly.
So now the scene switches to the JLU Watchtower, and we get some really cool interaction here between Hal and Carol. And this, I really like how Jeremy Adams is moving forward with the dynamic here. And she gets some of the information about Guy having the Book of Oa, and then Nathan stealing the Book of Oa.
Right.
And I also, we finally get in this issue an answer to something that I was talking to you about, like, that I didn't understand. It's not a perfect explanation, but it's good enough. So I talked about, I didn't understand how Nathan's ring was manifesting these powers to act like a lantern ring. So now it seems that because of the way the spectrum has been fractured, if somebody, and there's no power batteries, so if somebody is manifesting a very strong emotion, that's how they are manifesting these powers. So the ring itself was not the issue. He was manifesting that, and I guess that was influencing the ring to act the way it does. But he doesn't. What we're seeing here, the way that Jeremy Adams is saying that the spectrum is working now, people don't need rings to manifest these powers. And we actually see this later on in the issue. But anyway, what are your thoughts, Adam?
You have to have a certain level of willpower or emotion, or whatever the emotion is, to elicit these abilities. It can't just be like, it's almost like a force user. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Average Joe Blow can't do, like me or you being in this book probably couldn't really bring these emotions out of us. Maybe rage when I watch the Leafs, but that's.
I was going to say, during a Leafs game, we might be.
Any other moment of the day, probably wouldn't be able to. But you know what I mean? So it's kind of very much like you have to be force sensitive. It's almost like in Star Wars being force sensitive, being in tune. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not just like the mailman. The mailman can't just manifest. Hope that his route is smooth, and harness the blue energy.
No, we're talking about extreme emotions here.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very Star Wars-ish in a sense.
But I do want to point this out. The way that Carol is drawn in the last two panels here, she and Hal are lamenting the fact that they don't get some time together because they're waiting for Kyle to gather up a few friends, it says. But they realize they have a little time. And all of a sudden, she gets this really greedy look on her face, and she jumps on him. And, this is the perfect amount. We know what comes next, and that's the point.
Hal Jordan is cosplaying as Barry Allen and getting things done quickly, and away we go.
And note that she is very happy to see him. She jumps on him. So
it's a nice change of Hal always flirting with her. She's initiating the procedure this time around. So it's good. Good for Hal.
So the scene switches to the planet Oa, and we see that we get panels here from the Green Lantern Corps armory. And somebody is sneaking around trying to steal weaponry. And, of course, we learn that is Odyssey the Time Bandit. By the way, she gets a full-page spread here, and the anatomical, like the twist and the way she has the weapon, she's drawn very well here. It's a very dynamic, dynamic pencil and color work.
Very cool-looking character. Yeah, I assume she's new because I had never seen her before.
So we see that she is being monitored by somebody who realizes what she's doing down there, and that turns out to be Kyle.
So nice to have him back in the books, Donnie. I gotta say.
Some people were complaining that he wasn't in Green Lantern Corps very much. He was just kind of in the background. But it seems like he's going to be playing a major role in the main title for right now.
Sure, of course, yeah. I mean, with 2 books, you're going to see it. A fair amount, I would say.
Okay, so the two of them, Odyssey and Kyle, transport themselves to Earth, Australia to be exact, and they actually scare a couple of natives.
Oh, yeah, that would be shocking.
And again, great artwork here. And they meet up with somebody, again, I haven't seen in a while, and that is Connor Kent.
I also loved seeing him in this book. It was like, hey, who's here?
And
a swimsuit edition of something. Like he's just there bathing, swimming and having a good old time.
The way that he shows up, first of all, if you're a Connor Kent fan, and I'll say if you're either a lady or you're gay, either way.
Hey, listen, you're in a pen and you were a fan, you'd be clicking it.
All I'm saying is when you see him show up in this panel, I was waiting for him to say, "Ladies, keep the noise down while I take my robe off and show you what a real sexy man's supposed to look."
That's right, Rick Rude.
Exactly, remind me of Rick Rude. So
you know what it reminded me of too? One of those those cologne commercials where the guy comes out of the water and they get a little bit one of those, and I'm like, okay,
yeah.
In the middle of winter, this is what we're doing, DC. Cool, all right.
And so he sees Odyssey and is immediately smitten, and she seems to return, some of the gaze here. And I think my favorite panel on this page is the two of them looking at one another, kind of sizing one another up. Yeah. And Kyle is looking at Connor, and he's like, you can almost read his thoughts. He's like, did I used to act like this? And the answer is yes. With every woman you saw, Kyle.
What an amazing callback. I thought, yeah. And it's like, and it's the funny part was he makes a comment to Connor, like judging his approach. And I'm like, don't judge him. I was exactly like you. I'm like, you did the exact same thing for the bulk of your early existence with everything that had a heartbeat and moved. So don't judge him.
The scene cuts back to the watchtower. And we see that now at this point, Hal and Carol are parting ways. And before they do, again, we get the big smoochy face.
Yeah.
And Hal says, remember, if you feel I'm in trouble, don't think I can handle it alone. Okay? I will. I'll see you soon. And he says, I love you. And she says, I love you too. Point I'm trying to make here, remember with the whole tether with the Star Sapphire ring, right. He's saying, if you sense that, either one of us, let's come to the other one to help.
Yeah, yeah.
So at this point, we have We have Connor and Hal and
Superboy.
Odyssey and Kyle. They are all on the Interceptor.
Yeah.
And in a very Hal Jordan moment, Kyle says, "You don't have to impress us. Why don't we take it slow?" as they're taking off. And Hal says, "Slow? I don't know the meaning of the word." In a very Hal Jordan moment. And of course, they blast off.
First of all, I really like the fact that they're using the ship from the cartoon,
Mm-hmm.
from the animated series.
Yeah.
And
I really love that inclusion.
And they even mention how it doesn't have the AI assistant anymore. So I like that callback, but also it makes sense given the fact that Jeremy Adams is writing this, and he was involved with the animated series. Remember? So
yes, yeah.
So I like that he brought that in, and just having Hal sort of in the captain chair. It calls back to Star Trek for me, and especially because they did that crossover with Star Trek and Green Lantern. So I got some Star Trek vibes while reading this.
Okay, so now the scene changes to the Castle of the Desolate Stone, and what a name that is.
It belongs in Masters of the Universe. That's where that belongs.
And so, on his channel, Dan on Mosaic Comics, made the point a couple of videos back. I don't remember which one it was. That it seemed kind of weird that even though the Sorrow, and that's how they are referring to him now, the Sorrow, even though Nathan is very powerful, it's one guy against the entire Corps. Now we're seeing that possibly the plan unfolding here is that he is seemingly teamed up with Starbreaker, and we see that Starbreaker calls the Starbreaker Corps to where he is. Now I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, since they can kind of siphon emotions, those types of energies, what if Nathan imbues them all with sorrow? What if he creates a core of sorrow? Is that his goal here? Is he going to work with Starbreaker to do that? Is he just going to overtake Starbreaker and do that?
Sounds very plausible. That scenario unfolding. So basically, I mean, he's recruiting, they're recruiting their own bloodline kind of thing. Their own core is the bloodline. That's right.
Yeah. I went and saw King Lear last night. My wife and I went and saw a play. And first time in a long time we had been out, and we enjoyed it. When it was over, I was telling her about the similarities between King Lear and Roman Reigns when he was a heel. So,
of course, you would make that connection. I'm sure she was riveted by that fact as well. Was there anybody named Martha in this play? That's my question.
No, why'd you say that name? No, there was nobody named Martha.
Because I would like to hear you scream that out in a play.
There were a couple of references to the Dark Tower. Actually has some references from King Lear. So we're getting off track here because I really love the Dark Tower. I like to read, and just you can't, in case you didn't know. So
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So now this story ends, or this issue, I should say. This Hal goes to investigate this planet, and did they say exactly where it was?
They mentioned the name, but I couldn't remember it.
Yeah, they get a transmission here, and I said earlier that he comes upon an entire massacre of this village.
Yeah,
and we see that there is a being there. There's an alien who is manifesting rage, and unless it's the angle of the art, this is the final page of this story. It looks like this being is not using a ring. He's manifesting rage, and I mean like the red energy around him, including a construct, an enormous hammer, and he's not wearing a ring.
Yeah, I didn't see a ring either. I didn't notice one. Do we know who this character is? Like, do you have any idea who he is? Is he?
No, he is not a character whose name immediately came to mind. Okay, and like I said, he's not wearing a Red Lantern uniform. He's not wearing a ring, so I'm guessing this is a new character as well.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't sure. But for now, we'll call him MC Red Hammer. That's all we know.
That's a good one, man.
Until further notice, Jeremy Adams, if you want to use that, go ahead. I won't.
MC Red Hammer. I love it. So
For infringement. Go ahead. You have my full release to use that. But yeah, so it was cool. I was very, very interesting ending to keep you wanting more.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I got many of the variant covers.
Really, I'm shocked.
I actually have between a Green Lantern Corps and this. These are all the variant covers that I bought.
Lord, that's a stack. I think that's my monthly stack. But let's compare. Hold on. Hold yours up again.
Okay.
This is mine. And these are all different books, by the way.
This is all Green Lantern.
So the problem is I have to organize them now and put them away. That's the pain in the ass.
Yeah. By the way, this is the one I found. This is the foil cover for Fractured Spectrum.
Oh, yes. That's a cool one.
All right, so now it is time to hop on to Green.
We should rate this one. Shouldn't we rate this issue?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to give it straight up 5 across the board for story and art. I thought it was fantastic. Again, Jeremy Adams just continues to demonstrate to me that he is in full command of these characters and has a great understanding of them. And the art stops you in your tracks because it's so beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm going to agree. Like I said, I really like where this is going, and I almost want to take just a little bit of a point off because, like I said, I think we could have gotten a little bit more explanation as
Sure.
far as the Sorrow Lanterns, the ring goes, but it's good enough.
And I think it's coming.
I love the character, so I don't want to suggest that. But I told you that's kind of the one thing about the story that's been annoying me is that we didn't know why he had a ring that was working. Well, the answer is he doesn't need a ring. So,
right.
All right, so now we hop on to Green Lantern Corps #1. This has been so long in coming. You and I talked about the Lantern end of the DC universe has needed a Green Lantern Corps book for so long.
We've been talking about this since probably Jeffrey Thorne's run, how there should be more than one Green Lantern book. So.
Yeah. So this book opens up in the Anteri system, and we see a very familiar face, and that is Kanjar-Ro.
Yes.
Who is doing some trafficking here, and he thinks he now has free reign because there's no police force in the universe.
Right.
And of course, who shows up? But first, it's John Stewart, who makes this. I love that he makes a construct of Superman.
Oh, I thought that was great. I love it. You can tell DC is really amping up to that movie, but Superman randomly appears as a construct.
Yeah. Well, and I should point out here, there's been a lot of discussion over the years among Green Lantern fans as what exactly is the nature of the Green Lantern Corps? Are they a military organization? Are they soldiers for the Guardians, or are they police? Depending on the era, they have functioned in different ways. Jeremy Adams definitely leans into the idea of them being a police force at this point in time. In fact, you can see here, John's construct says police.
Yeah.
And and I'm talking about the shield that he made before Superman.
Yeah, that looked really cool too.
Yeah.
I dug that.
In fact, it says, long ago, the Guardians of the Universe founded an interstellar police force to safeguard the cosmos from evil and destruction. Today, that force starts anew. They are the Green Lantern Corps.
Yeah, so he's basically telling you what we're dealing with here.
And it's interesting, something you and I talked about. We get this picture of John as he is taking Kanjar-Ro into... Kanjar-Ro, by the way, looks a lot more kind of intimidating than we've usually seen him in the past.
Yeah.
Usually he's been kind of this, squirrely, skinny little alien or whatever. But he looks pretty threatening here until the Green Lanterns show up. And
does he look kind of like Kang to you? Does he have the Kang-esque features.
Does he look like who?
Kang from Marvel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I mean he's a lot more kind of jacked and sure of himself until John and the Corps show up. And interestingly here we see that Saint Walker is now a Green Lantern.
Yeah, I mean,
in the background here, yes.
Maybe he lost some hope and gained some will. I don't know.
And I've heard Jeremy Adams say this, and this, I've got to give him this. This is fair. Some things have happened off panel because he's juggling so many characters, and he doesn't have control over editorial either. And you and I have talked about these little events that he's had to integrate into his story. And so, yeah, so Saint Walker is now a Green Lantern.
And also, it offers, like, just because he hasn't told us yet, there could be flashbacks. There could be stories told in the past that explain that. So there's still fertile story opportunity there.
Right. And he also offered this, too. He said that some people were annoyed by the fact that they saw Kyle as a White Lantern, and then all of a sudden he wasn't again. What he has said, what Jeremy Adams has said, is that because the spectrum is so fractured and chaotic right now, he can't sustain the White Lantern energy. So it seems that down the road, he may have the ability to, again, kind of go Super Saiyan and be the White Lantern again, but he can't sustain it.
Absolutely.
And if you think that Saint Walker being a Green Lantern is the biggest surprise in this book, you would be wrong.
Oh, big time. I was surprised, I'll tell you.
Because we get a huge one later on. Also, I want to call attention to, I really like when, so the scene cuts to Oa, Sector Zero, Green Lantern Corps, Precinct Prime. And we see all of these Green Lanterns here. And I like when we get to see kind of the inner workings of Oa.
Interesting that you mentioned about the precinct. This is where I really keyed in, where to me this felt like a police procedural book. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good, I love this part. I'm like, this is like watching Law and Order, but imagine if it had Green Lanterns in it.
Right.
That's cool. I like that.
But one of the things we see here is that as John is arresting Kanjar-Ro, bringing him in and talking to Joe, in the background, there is an alien who is cuffed, and Guy Gardner is talking to him, and he starts to expand, or it starts to expand. It doesn't really, look male or female. It starts to expand, and you see it here. The thing blows up in Guy's face, and all of a sudden, either it had a baby or it reverted to a baby, and Guy is left with this water baby that he's dealing with, and he makes a construct bottle to feed the baby. So,
Guy gets the short end of the stick all the time.
It was really fun because John and Joe are having this very serious conversation, and Guy is watching this water alien blow up in his face.
That was pretty funny.
Oh, I'd like to know how much that was Jeremy Adams and how much it was the artists, giving him maybe that idea to have this going on in the background.
And I also think it's important, Joe is saying if you need somebody to talk to, you've been through a lot.
Yeah.
I'm here, and John's like, don't worry about it, I'm okay. But in his monologue, he's admitting that he's had a lot happen to him.
Yes. Well, that's very similar to what we see on the next page, is that, it says Corps Captain's Office, and that is Jessica Cruz, who is dealing with a lot. And go ahead.
We now know what her role is. Remember, we were questioning the role, and now we know what her role is.
Yes. But she's dealing with a lot as a leader here, and Simon comes in and is like, you're working too hard. So he's concerned about here. And I like that flashback, the kind of the dynamic that the two had. Remember, they were partners in Green Lanterns.
Right. Yeah,
I've always enjoyed that relationship. It's more of a friendship than anything between the two of them.
It was a nice callback to that. I like that they still have that rapport with each other. Even to the point where she's like, you're telling me to relax, but now you made me late to the meeting.
Right, and exactly.
She blames him, and he's like, I didn't do anything. He's like, it wasn't me.
And I like how she, and the art shows her like running out of the room in panic.
His body language was hilarious. Like if you look at it, you can see what did I do? He's like, I didn't do anything. It's not my fault.
So the scene cuts to the Great Hall here, and we see that John is explaining exactly who Ellie Rose is at this point. Remember, she is a living construct. She operates independent, it seems, of John and his ring. Like he's not continually like willing her into existence. He imbued her with part of himself, and now she is a sentient being. Now we don't see any references to his mother. Remember, he was talking to his mother through the ring.
She's in the ring, or her
Right.
consciousness or whatever is in the ring.
Yeah, so that's no longer being addressed, although it may be addressed at a different time. But she is working with Kelly Quintella, and I kind of like that pairing because remember during the Thorn run I told you I'm like we don't know who Kelly is yet, and so Jeff gave us a little bit of insight, and now Jeremy Adams is developing her some.
Yes,
and I like that idea, and without like having too much of the story on her. Because there are so many other like main characters, but I like that she's kind of interacting with Ellie Rose. And again, you and I talked about the fact, I'm like, what happens if John's power is ever cut off temporarily and he loses Ellie Rose? That's going to be something it's got to be devastating for him.
Yeah. No, I like I said, I really like seeing Kelly explored a bit more because. We had like I said, we had talked about it, and so I like the fact that we are seeing a little bit more of her, and hopefully through this book we'll get little pieces of her, and also Ellie as well, or Ella, I should say.
No, it's Ellie.
Ellie, okay.
Ellie Rose, it's Ellie Rose. Yeah,
Kelly, that's going to be an issue for me verbally, but seeing the two of them interact, we'll get more of their character growth as we continue on with this book, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah. So we see that they all get a briefing here on who the Sorrow is.
Yeah,
and they know he's out there, and they're dealing with the crack in the spectrum.
Yeah.
And so then they get a report here that on Tamaran there has been a spike of fear energy. So again, they are told that there's this spike of fear energy, and we see that they're going to investigate that, and there's a very key person here as part of this investigation. And again, I said that there was a big reveal in this, and you turn the page, and who is once again a Green Lantern, but Thal Sinestro. Now, that is not something that, as we read his arc through these issues where he became a Red Lantern and was trying to manipulate Hal, trying to take his ring early on, and he crushes Mogo, I never thought this is where we would end up.
Well, certainly a twist that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
But I think it creates great story potential here.
Mm-hmm. But we see that as they go to the city of Palomar on Tamaran, the reason why Sinestro is now a Green Lantern again is that he's using his will to control this sort of out of control fear energy. Yeah. And I really like the fact, because he even talks about that here when he sees Vexaru, and she's a Tamaranian. Yes. And I like what he says here. He talks about fear is not necessarily a bad thing. And that's what he talks about here. And she says, and when I say she, I mean Vexaru, she's like, I'm afraid that I am not worthy. And she's a believer in this god on Tamaran. Mm-hmm. And then Sinestro says, and this is a very interesting way to say this, he says, fear, it's not about never feeling it. It's not about being fearless. It's about overcoming it.
Yeah. Which she's able to do.
That's one thing that I still miss is the selection process is a ring coming to a candidate and saying, you have shown the ability to overcome great fear. or you have shown indomitable will or something like that.
Right.
I miss that being part of the mythos. And I'll say more about that in just a minute.
Yeah,
So what were your impressions here?
Again, it makes sense that he's given what we saw, a Green Lantern again, because he's able to use his willpower to control the fear, right? To the overwhelming, fear energy, and because let's not forget, which we're reminded in this issue by Sinestro, by John Stewart and Sinestro himself, that he's considered the greatest Green Lantern of all time. So it makes sense.
That was my favorite quote. I'll go ahead and finish what you have to say.
But it makes sense that he could do that and just become a Green Lantern again. Use his sheer amount of will. So the fact that he was Green Lantern again surprised me, but it didn't shock me.
Yeah. I'll be honest, it shocked me. I did not think that's where we were going. Now, he has.
Yeah, it shocked me in the sense like seeing it, but after the shock of seeing it, I'm like, okay, it makes sense though. Like the explanation they gave made sense to me.
Well, and the thing is, Sinestro still has a level of respect for the Green Lantern Corps, and he always will. His perspective is that they don't go far enough in the way that they police and control things.
You know who Sinestro reminds me of? The final boss. He's got the final boss character aspect.
And that's interesting because he comes up to John Stewart and says, I want your soul. No, I'm just kidding.
Side note, I've now started calling the Rock the Rockter Taker because apparently he wants people's souls. So
that was a very weird promo, but anyway, let's get back on task here.
It was indeed.
So we see that, okay, so this giant fear construct that was a manifestation of Vexaru, that was being fought off by Blackfire.
Which is
and again, the sister of Starfire, who's kind of very smitten with John Stewart. She makes a couple passes at him.
She was full on. She was like, if she had a pen, it would be clicking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but Sinestro sees Vexaru as a worthy candidate of a ring.
Yeah.
Which John Stewart then gives her a ring. Now, I don't mind this character having the ring because I like what led up to it. But it's like what I said earlier. I like the idea more of a Green Lantern ring kind of choosing its bearer. But I also understand with where the emotional spectrum is, this also makes sense. But I miss that being part of
maybe at this point, given like you said, given where the emotional spectrum is, the rings don't have that capability at present.
Yeah.
So they have to be given by a senior lantern.
Right. Who is John Stewart.
Yeah.
And yeah, you and I talked about that. Blackfire actually says to John Stewart, and I love his expression. She says, "You will make a fine concubine."
I mean, listen, she's going full court press.
She let the intrusive thoughts win.
And listen, she's like, remember that staying on the wrestling analogy? Remember that time where Booker T was in the ring with Stephanie McMahon, and this was post her enhancements, let's say, and he's doing his promo, and he looks at her and goes, "Damn, Stephanie, you're looking good." And that's basically what she was doing.
She liked her some Master Builder. She approves of what she sees. So.
She would like to take his ring for a test drive, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But I don't think this is the last of this.
No, definitely not. But you made reference to my favorite line from this book is he says, "You did good today, Sinestro," and he goes, "Of course I did. I'm the greatest Green Lantern that ever lived, after all."
He just says it like it's a fact, and it's indisputable. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm the best. He channeled his inner Bret Hart in that moment.
Okay, so the scene cuts back to the Great Hall on Oa, and we see that there is yet another thing that the Green Lantern Corps that they have to address.
Yeah, they have to go to
And for this,
Thanagar.
they,
They
hum,
have to go to Thanagar, right?
yes, they have to go to Thanagar. And Jessica says, we have another mission for you, one of political importance, one that you have been asked to help with by name. And who shows up?
Hawk Girl or Hawk
Hawk
Woman.
Girl. Okay, so I mean,
Shaira is the version that we're talking about.
yes, and I really, I have not read a Hawk Girl specific or Hawkman comic for a while. I like her look here. I like this armored look, the helmet and everything.
And John is like, please don't, like his inner monologue is like, please don't let it be her. Please don't let it be her. I don't need this right now. And then who is it? It's her.
It's her. She's like, long time no see. And you know what? I mean,
graciously in her positioning, in her body language, she also wants, to quote The Rock in a very kind of as respectful as I can get while quoting this kind of Rock terminology. Seems like Jon Stewart has a potential to be at a dessert buffet, a pie buffet, if you will. Because between the queen of Tamaran there,
yeah, between Blackfire and now
oh boy,
Hawk Girl. So
there's some love triangle going on.
Yeah.
We may need Maury Povich to sort this out real soon. At this rate.
Well, and for anybody who may be wondering exactly why Hawk Girl has significance here, she was one of John's love interests on the old Justice League cartoon.
And I love that they're bringing that in because that was my intro to Jon Stewart.
Right. Now I'll say this: I prefer John with Kat Matui, but at the same time, a relationship like this, unlike for some people that we've talked about with some of like the past TV shows. Something like this is not make or break for me. It could still be interesting, and just because I don't get the one relationship that I think is the best, I'm not going to throw a fit and say, "Oh, I'm not going to watch this because I don't get the ship that I want."
Yeah, the only things I ship are things that come from Amazon or Big Bad Toy Store or things of that nature. So I like this relationship. Listen, I want John to like I said. I hope John gets a buffet and just have fun. Because why should Hal have all the fun? Hal had his moment. It's time for John to have some fun too.
Well, John obviously, as the kids say, John has the riz.
Well, apparently, I don't know what that means still, but
it means charisma, and I just learned that in like the last month or so.
Just kids, listen, kids. For the sake of grammar and for the sake of the future of the world, it's okay to say the full words of things. Charisma. It's instead of saying mid, say to put a full sentence and say it's just okay. Like that's okay. It's good. Use your words, kids.
Well, but every generation has their slang. So don't be mid, Adam.
Well, listen, I'll be mid if I want to be mid. Oh, stop being mid when my hockey team has some riz. That's what I want. We're talking about riz. Let's go.
When it comes to the Leafs and the playoffs, I think mid is a very fitting word.
In Game 7, damn it, that's what I
want. But anyway, what do you think of the two books and the direction that we're going now?
I love having this Green Lantern Corps book back. Yeah. I totally bought into the police procedural in space.
Yes.
Which is at its core part of the Green Lantern. It's baked into the mythology. And I love that was on full display here. And all the characters that were presented, pretty much, the main characters, had their moment.
Yeah.
Even though it was heavily focused on John, this particular issue. But the art is beautiful. Again, it's phenomenal. I think this was, again, in terms of a debut issue, it set the table with the characters, and it got right into the thick of things, and it had that great balance. So I think it's a solid. Again, I've had no issues with this book, much like the last one. So I'm going to give it a perfect 5 on both the writing and art.
Yeah, I love the direction of this, and even things that every once in a while that I take issue with narratively, they've come to a place eventually where I get the kind of explanation that keeps this story moving. And so there's nothing that's happened yet that I have found so objectionable that I don't love exactly where this is going.
So for me, when it comes to things like that, wanting explanations for certain things that are put forth, before I start complaining about it becoming an issue, I give the writer,
room to breathe. Give him time.
A story arc at least to give me some sort of explanation before I start complaining about it, right? So, yeah. I mean, we're one issue in. Let's see where things go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They can't do everything in one issue, because if they did that, it would only be a one shot, and we don't want that with Green Lantern Corps. We want a long running series. So
yes, let's hope for like 50 issues or more. So
let's go on to more, but yeah, 50 to start.
There's 50 to start, and that's the thing. A lot of modern comic book titles don't run for long. They run for a few years and they stop. So, by the way, you asked me one time on one of our very first episodes, you said, would Green Lantern have 1,000 comics? Because you remember those commemorative 1,000 comics.
I think I was complaining about the renumbering, that was my gripe.
Right.
Renumbering. Yeah.
Well, and I said at the time, it might be 1,000, depending on whether you include all of these, like Green Lantern Corps. Do you include like all of these like mini Green Lantern series? I don't know.
I was just talking about Green Lantern itself.
So the answer then is, it says legacy numbering 586. That's on the cover of Green Lantern number 19. So that's where we are as far as the main title.
Which I appreciate. I love that.
Yeah.
But
so number 586. Here's
an example before we close out. Just the other day, in the intermission of watching the Canada-US game, I checked the hellscape known as Twitter, more to see if a certain orange fool had any reaction to the hockey game. But anyway, and I'm not talking about Larfleeze, but I saw the announcement that Batman was getting renumbered, a new number 1, and a new creative team, and I love the creative team, and I'm like, but here we go again with a number 1.
Yeah.
But again, I don't mind it, because it's apparently I read a thing where it's like only the 4th time that the main Batman title since its inception has been renumbered. So I kind of let it pass. It just like with Batman, for example, we're at like 158 now, 57 now, going on 58. And then they're bringing back Hush, and then after Hush, they're going to go back to number 1. And it's like, well, you know what a pain that is? When I have to organize it, you know what that's going to do to me? That's going to cause problems. That's why I have a problem with it.
Well, I'm going to be very myopic here. And I know some, and again, I spend a lot of time on Green Lantern message boards and kind of gauging the fandom and getting different perspectives. A lot of people were like, why do we have to have like these constant like little off ramps like Fractured Spectrum? Why do we get a number 1 and then we get another number 1? And I can see where they're coming from, because some people might be confused. But for me, I'm like, okay, it gives me a chance to collect more variant covers. And so I'm like, I'm all for it.
It's also a great jumping on point for people. Like, for example, just like I mentioned, the Batman thing. Can you imagine, somebody watches the Batman, right?
Right.
And says, I want to start reading Batman comics. And then they go to the store and see, Batman 158. What the hell am I supposed to do? Like, what's supposed to start?
Well, that was the problem for so many years. DC and Marvel both, they had these long-running titles, and people got intimidated because they were like, okay, if I jump in on issue number, 651, I'm not going to know what's going on. And that's where it gets intimidating for people. So I understand the comic companies wanting to release these shorter stories and also start over and renumber renumber titles so they can get new readers.
And I will say this though, the way they sold me on the new number one of Batman was two things. One, I really like the creative team, Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez. I think it's going to be a great creative team. Number two, Batman's back in blue and gray, and I'm like, all right,
okay, yeah. So
you convinced me.
You like that classic look, huh?
Not that I have any say in the matter, but I'm like, I don't know. I pretend that I do. So there it is. But to me, listen, you can renumber like Green Lantern, the Batman title, the Superman. Just leave action and detective their classic numbering. That's all.
Right.
Everything else, I'm open. But those two, just let them be. Let the numbers be. But that's off track. But yeah, we're off to like listen. I keep saying this every time we do one of these shows. Right now, let's put aside your little gripes about the age of actors playing certain characters. This is a great time to be a Green Lantern fan on all fronts. Comics, live action, it's fantastic.
There's Green Lantern from so many directions these days.
Enjoy it.
The books, the anticipation of the live action Green Lanterns and the figures, you might say we have restored the Lanternverse.
Yeah.
I knew that was going to get on Adam's nerves.
This is the best restoration I've ever seen. By the way, and so look, and the best part of it is, I think when we reconvene next episode, which will be next month, I believe we're going to have a third Green Lantern book to cover, which is Absolute
Green Lantern.
So we're going to have a trick of Green Lantern books to talk about next month. But until then, you can catch up with us on social media. Donnie, where can people find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky and Reddit and Facebook and, of course, YouTube. Let's talk comics. Let's talk collectibles. Let's talk Green Lantern.
I'm still, if you want to find me, I'm still on the hellscape that I will not call anything else but Twitter. But I'm also on Blue Sky, which I will advertise in the description, because I won't advertise the other place because I don't want to give that nut job any more attention. The nut job that runs it. So Blue Sky is what I'll advertise. We also have the Facebook group, which is listed in the description below. Click that. I will add you. We can continue the conversation there. But remember, Green Lantern and the Corps are forever. From the first time Hal and Carol enjoy some smoochy time before Hal departs, to the last. So long, everybody.
So long, everyone.